From the Toronto Star, I'm Reggie Mudler, and this matters. That's the famous Nintendo 64 kid video that went viral of someone getting what he really wanted for Christmas. Do you remember that feeling? What would you give to recapture it? Because plenty of adults are trying. Toys. They're not just for kids anymore. No, seriously. While many industries were obviously hurt during the pandemic, the toy industry enjoyed record-breaking sales. And one of the biggest trends is what the marketing folks have decided to call the kidult category. That's not a new term that fits somewhere in between preteen, tweens, or even after teen. It means adults buying this stuff for themselves. From Lego sets that cost hundreds of dollars to self-care sandboxes or the hottest new board games and all sorts of collectibles. Adults are trying to recapture some of their youth, with many rediscovering their childlike love of play. What's not childlike is their budgets, as some have money to burn, and now no parental guidance to stop them from spending it. To discuss this, we are joined by Adrienne Appell. She is the Senior Vice President of Marketing Communications at the Toy Association, and also their toy trends expert. She's here to talk about some of the big trends that their research has shown. Adrienne, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Adrienne, let's just start off with everything has been affected by the pandemic. And I think one of the things that I found really interesting is that people have been buying toys at a record pace. Is that right?
Yes, I think that, the pandemic gave us a lot of time to slow down and look for things to do. I have two young kids at home, and play really saved us, from family game night to the adults disconnecting from your phone and the news that was happening. It gave us a chance as a family to come around the table and, play together, whether it was playing board games or putting together a puzzle. And, I work in the industry. I know how important it is and I know how great it is, but I wasn't so great about making the time. Pre-pandemic, we were running from one activity to another in school and work, and we squeezed in a little bit of play. But when we had all the time in the world, we found that it's something we really enjoyed to do together. So that's something that even though, life is starting to resume slowly, people are making time to play and they realize it's not frivolous. Kids were able to express their emotions. You got to unwind, you got to de-stress. And a lot of families were even helping their kids learn through play. So I think all those things that we kind of knew, that's great. Yeah, but we don't have time for that, has kind of come full circle. And families are really kind of rediscovering how important play is and how much fun it is too.
You brought up a really interesting word in there, and that was the idea of the fact that it's not frivolous. Because one of the things that I really want to talk to you about is that one of the big trends is a term that you guys call the kidult trend. Explain to me what exactly that is.
So years ago, I've been in the industry for quite a while, and there was this phenomenon. They called it kids getting older younger. And, these kids are getting, so old at a young age and no one's going to be buying toys anymore. And this is a big problem. What we've come to find is as time goes on, that trend has kind of reversed to the fact that that demographic of people who are buying toys has expanded well beyond, the 12 or 13-year-olds into teens, tweens, young adults, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Even, research shows that you can ward off some of the aging effects by playing. So we're seeing all different types of products and all different age groups really embracing toys. And it's not, just what people think, oh, that person who collects or this one or that. It's really across the board. And everyone's really proud to kind of engage in their inner kid and just sit back and play. It's something that, is widely accepted now. And we're having a really fun time with it. In fact, we have the Toy of the Year awards every year. We just announced the nominees. And for the first time ever, we have a category, and it's the Grownup Toy of the Year. And it's toys that, you can put on your holiday list. You can buy that for your mom, your grandma, your best friend. And it's really a fun trend that we're really embracing.
Okay, I want to unpack this because it is growing a lot. I actually do want to hear what's on that list. Let's just talk about some of these factors. I think nostalgia has to be a big one. And then I also think that's really interesting that doesn't go on that because it's very new is the idea of the self-care and wellness movement. I think these are two things that are absolutely factors in this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a way to de-stress. It's a way to unwind. And some of it's oddly calming. Sometimes like I'm building a Lego set with my son and I'm just kind of like, let's sit back, and I'm having a great time. And now Lego's introduced all of these great, like you can build different things for adults and some of those intricate builds. So I think you looking at all these different things, just something you really enjoyed doing as a kid, why do you have to stop now? What says at a certain age, okay, that's not appropriate or fun anymore? If you're getting joy from it, you're having fun, keep on playing. And there's a lot of things out there now. I think companies are recognizing the fact that, this is a growing demand. Adults want to play too.
No, that's just it. It was people's judgments. I think there's that saying of, I grew up and I put away the things of a child. And now, honestly, some of these products blow me away. And the thing is I said to you when we started this, I'm basically an overgrown child. We up here have Fan Expo, which is like Comic-Con in San Diego. So I'm a nerd. I'm self-admitted and geek, and I've been seeing these things for years. But is it fair to say that this stuff has gone sort of more mainstream right now? And if so, why?
Yeah, I definitely think it's been mainstream. There's been an adult collector group for forever and, high end, and they trade and they collect, and they've kind of been a niche audience within themselves. I think, social media, I think the more availability is too, because I think from the adult collector standpoint, a lot of that's rooted in like action figures and comic books. And it's kind of overwhelming if you're not an aficionado. You don't know who this is, or you don't know who that is. That's kind of a hard thing to step into as an adult. But now we're seeing different games, different building sets, kind of like de-stress toys, even kinetic sands, like a Zen garden that you can play with. So it's not just this specialized audience, like you're not in the club, you're not in the know, you're kind of out there. There's just really kind of something for everybody. Much like, when people ask what the hot toy for a kid is, I always say, well, how old is your kid? What do they like to do? I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and my 8-year-old, she likes very different things than her brother likes. So it's hard to say there's not one hot toy for a child, but if all of the grown-up toys, so to speak, were action figures, if you didn't like action figures, you were kind of out of luck. But now we're seeing so much more variety.
I want to talk about that, and I'd love to hear what the grown-up toy category of the year. I mean, the other thing, that factor I would say with this too is that, just to your point about there being something for everybody, my wife has a Friends TV show themed Lego set. So she has the Central Perk, the coffee shop that she has created with them. So I hear this, I get this. I'm curious what else is out there, and what's in these sort of award bait this year?
Yeah, so for the Grown-Up Toy of the Year awards, one of the finalists is the Disney Castle Collection. So that is kind of a high-end collectible, but it's not for action figures. There's so many people that love and embrace Disney. I think there are families that go every year, and maybe this pent-up demand of the family that didn't visit Disney, but mom or dad wants to collect and kind of walk their kids through, what that looks like. They're really beautiful and they're fun to display. So that's one of the finalists. Another one is a game, and it's called Exit the Game, and it's by Games and Cosmos. And it's basically like an escape room game for the home. So pre-pandemic, that escape room trend was so hot. And a lot of these have been brought down to a level from the home. It's a little higher price, but it's not going to be what, it would cost for a bunch of friends to go to an escape room. So that's a fun thing too. We also see like a Hot Wheels Tesla Cybertruck, which is fun for collectors, but you can also play. It's a remote control. So, why not? Race your kids, race the car, take it to the park. I mean, nobody cares, right? Like I said, there's not really that, oh, the grown-up put away your toys. I think everybody thinks it's cool. As I mentioned before, the kinetic sand, the Calm Zen box, that kind of speaks to me. So it's using kinetic sand, which I love to touch. Like anytime I'm at a trade show or an event, you can't help but touching it. But was I going to buy a box and play with it? I don't know. This is packaged more like I can have it on my desk. I can play with it. And I was actually thinking this morning, I need to kind of get that for myself. So if anybody in my family's listening, good holiday gift for me. But that's another finalist. As I mentioned with Lego, some of the builds, the botanical collection, which is really cool because you can build flowers and you can kind of display them. As you mentioned, your wife likes Friends. I think that would be a fun thing to build too. But some of this stuff is functional, right? If you don't have the space to store your Lego Friends set, you can make some Lego botanicals and put them in a vase and, stick them on the table, which kind of gives you some fun and whimsical, aspect. And also Razer came out with the Rambler 16. So it is a electronic bicycle. So that's another thing. It's for 18 plus, the price tag is $669, but that has a retro look. I mean, that's really a grown-up toy. That's a great thing to put on your list. But you'll notice these are all really, really different. Magnetiles came out with a Beatles theme collection. So that's a fun thing you can build and good office decor. And it's appropriate. Some of these things are appropriate for little kids too. They're just going to appeal to grownups a bit more. And there's also a Goonies game out by Funko. So for all you Goonies fans, the Goonies never say die. So you'll see it's a lot of games, it's building, it's, getting active. So it's not just about collecting action figures anymore, but that's still a huge thing too.
We'll be right back. So I'd say I still want action figures, but I am curious about this whole adult toy trend. Because my guess is there was probably a thinking at one point that there was no one who would buy a toy in, say, the $300, $400, $500 range. But now we're seeing a lot of things up there and more. From the industry's perspective, is there a price that's too high?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the toy industry across the board, the average price of a toy is about $10. So, you do see those splurge items from time to time. But, the bread and butter, outside the holidays is really, your child gets a good score on a test, or you go out and you buy a board game or things like that. So overall, the prices of toys are not that high. Some of these things, like I said, like the electronic bike, that's pretty pricey. But what we did see during the pandemic was, toy sales rose the first year and the actual volume didn't. So people were buying higher priced things. If you're going to kind of buy something, and as a parent, you kind of wanted to make that last. It wasn't that impulse purchase because you were in the store and your kid said, hey, I want that. We saw families buying, more science geared product, building sets, things that, as a parent, you knew that this was going to take up a lot of time. It wasn't going to be like, okay, they unboxed this thing and they played with it for a little while and then it got buried under the toy box. So I think when we talked about, people don't see it as frivolous anymore. They want to make an investment. So if you know that you're going to play with something or you're going to use it time and time again, if the value is there, like you say, pennies per play, right? How many times are you going to use this? I have some board games that have been in my home for, 20, 30 years. So that was a good investment. So I think people think like that as well.
Okay, let's move off the kidult trend and go back to this idea of rediscovering play. How important is that to the industry, but also for people in general?
Well, I think that the toy industry is kind of aims to serve. We want people to have fun. We recognize that the impact that we can make in kids and adults' lives. So I think the fact that people are kind of appreciating and agreeing with what we've been saying for a really long time. We have an initiative called the Genius of Play. And what the Genius of Play is really speaking to the benefits of play and how, play helps with so many different things and so many different developmental skills for kids. So, as I said before, in our busy pre-pandemic lives, it was like, okay, that's nice. But if my kid is not playing soccer or, taking a language or playing a musical instrument, they're going to be behind. There's so many studies that show the importance of unstructured play and, how kids use their imagination and how sometimes you have to let your kids be bored. I mean, sometimes my kids will complain they're bored. I'm like, all right, just figure it out, shut off the screens. And, I'll walk in and they have all the dolls and action figures lined up. And, they were pretending they were in an airplane in a hotel a lot during the pandemic. I guess they miss traveling, but the stuff that they would say and learn. So I think that it's really exciting to see toys kind of as the tools of play, but, it opens up a whole new world and it's so important.
Any other hot trends that are sort of informing things this year?
Well, the fidget toys. The fidget toys are one of the hottest trends out there. Anything from, sensory putty to poppets, all those collectibles. And I think they make great stocking stuffers, I have to say. And sometimes when I'm working from home, you'll find me with a poppet in my lap. I mean, there's something about it, right? It's calming. I think a lot of kids were using little devices when they were doing a lot of homeschooling because it kind of helped to kind of center them. And this is a trend that's continuing. And what I like about it is most of these items are really moderately priced. So it's good as that little stocking stuffer or you did good on a test. But a lot of my kids and their friends like to trade them. So it's kind of fun that socialization is back, right? It's kind of like the baseball cards of this generation. But, for a year or so when they were not able to kind of have that interaction, it's kind of brought that back. So that's really fun.
Okay, I'm going to be heading out to the malls soon. What is the thing that if I see it, I should just grab it because it's going to be that hot this year? Is there anything like that we know?
There are a bunch of things. So we have our Toy of the Year Awards program that I mentioned earlier. And if you go to toyawards.org, you can see all of the nominees. There are a bunch of different categories: action figure, game, grown up, steam toy. But basically, it really depends on, like what your kids like. We have Moji, the Labradoodle. So it's this really extremely realistic dog where you can train the dog to do different tricks and things. And we got it a couple of months ago. And then I had a friend say, oh my God, that dog, we can't get it anywhere. We can't find it. So I know every once in a while it's restocked at Target. So if you see that, I would definitely grab one. It's really cute and great for people like me who aren't really ready to actually get that pandemic dog. I made it this far, so this is going to have to do for now, but they absolutely love it. So it's really fun.
Okay, listen, this is not a trend, but this is one of those things that is just reality and it's affecting everything. Supply chain issues. I believe I've seen some releases from the Toy Association about this. What are you telling people? What should they know? What is the advice?
It is real. It is real. And if there are a couple of items, like if your kids have like one or two things they're really asking for, the must-haves, I would get them when you see them. So no matter what they are, you don't want any disappointment, under the tree, Hanukkah, the holidays. You're not going to walk into a store and see nothing. It's just really going to affect the selection. So, if you just need to buy some fillers and things like that, you can do your shopping late. The other thing we want to let everyone know, we're so conditioned for, all these sales. And if I wait for this, I'm going to get a sale. Because of the supply chain issues, obviously availability is going to be harder and inventory is going to be low. So we're not expecting those traditional markdowns, so to speak. So again, shop early. You don't want a disappointed kid for the holidays.
Adrienne, this has been fantastic for us. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think that our listeners should know?
I think for, more toyawards.org is like the ultimate shopping list, and geniusofplay.org, just to kind of learn about those benefits of play. Actually, one more thing I will add in. When shopping online this holiday season, we're really just cautioning families to shop safely, to make sure you know who you're buying from. We know the supply chain issues are going to make finding some of those items on your kids' list harder to find. And toys that are sold in the United States and Canada are subject to so many regulations and tests. When you buy online, sometimes if you don't know who you're buying from, those products, there's a good chance they're counterfeit. And if they're counterfeit, they are not held to those same standards. And buying a fake toy is very different than buying a fake purse or a fake pair of sneakers. A fake toy could be dangerous. So just make sure you know where you're buying from. If a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. So just be cautious, but you should be assured that if you're buying from, a reputable retailer, your local store, those products are going to be safe.
That's very good advice. Adrienne, can you say something that's on your Xmas list?
I don't know now. I'm talking about all this stuff. I'm like, I want everything. I thought, sure, I'd like a trip. But in terms of toys, I do want like that sensory sandbox. I think that's really cool. And I'd like to get some sort of Lego set that I can kind of build with my kids. I don't want to do it all on my own. I want a little bit of help. But I think that would be a good activity, especially, when it's cold out and something we can kind of come back to after school and stuff like that.
Well, Adrienne, I hope one of your loved ones hear this and gets the hint. This has been great for us. I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Adrienne Appell is the Senior Vice President of Marketing Communications at the Toy Association. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Raju Mudder. Our This Matters team is Adrienne Chung, Brian Bradley, JP Fozo, Matt Hearn, Morgan Bachneck, Saba Etizaz, and Sean Pattenden. Our music is by So-Called, Mike DeAngelis, and Sean Pattenden. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com/subscribingmatters. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.